So thank you for coming. Um, we pass a lot of legislation, a lot of important legislation in every session. There's a focus on school choice. There's a focus on cutting property taxes and fortifying the grid and addressing water and affordable housing. Those are all very important. But there's nothing more important than the safety of our citizens. There's nothing more important than pushing back when courts really find us and the children that they have lost. And these are not isolated cases. This is all over the state, and you could argue all over the country by a judicial system that seems to focus more on the killers than those they killed. Senator Huffman has passed this package of bills for how many years?
Well, since 19 we started this, and then the constitutional amendment since 21.
And every time they've died in the House. That's just the facts. Democrats, particularly Democrats from Harris County, have been some of the biggest obstacles. You may not know this, but Andy Kahn testified earlier. He keeps track of everyone who's killed and who killed them and if they are out on bail. And I had to step out, so I didn't hear the final number, but it's well over 100. Harris County is the only one that keeps track of that. One of the bills we will also pass is to make sure every county above a certain size keeps those records so we know, because we know anecdotally it's happening in other big counties around the state. I'm pleased for the first time since I've been lieutenant governor, just 10 years, that the Speaker of the House has sat down and listened to their stories. When we left the hearing, we walked across to the Speaker's office, and we've been there for the last half hour. I appreciate Speaker Dustin Burrows. As he said, the best way I learn is to hear personal stories. I believe we have a commitment from the Texas House and from the Speaker to pass this bail bond package. He introduced us, and I know John Smithy for a long time. John Smithy is going to be handling these bills. I think that's a very positive sign. And it's time for the Texas House, and now that we've seen the leadership by the Speaker on this issue, it's time for the Democrats in the House to join the Democrats in the Senate. I mean, we passed these bills almost unanimously.
Correct.
Almost unanimously. The Democrats in the Senate understand. So I want to introduce Senator Huffman just to review the package of bills. There's also another bill, I believe it's Senate Bill 8, is a priority bill on 287Gs so that we don't have sheriffs letting out illegal aliens. They hold them for ICE. So that's another bill that will be carried. But I want her to talk about the package of bills, and then for the media to hear their stories and why they're here. I'm sad that I know them. I wouldn't know them if they had not lost children to killers who should have never been on the street and who were let out as soon as in 24 hours after they took the life of their family members. I wish I didn't know them. But these are courageous people for other families so this never happens to them. Senator Huffman.
Thank you. Thank you all for being here and bringing attention to this issue that we have tried to bring attention to now for several years and have, but there comes a time sometimes when an injustice just has to end. And I don't know a better time than getting it done this session. These family members, these victims have come to us time and time again, begging for an injustice to be righted. At some point, you have to think, like, why are we here? What is this all about? Why are we here? What's government about? Well, one of the most important things, in my opinion, that government has to do is provide public safety and basic safety and rights to the citizens. And every one of the people up here, the victims who are the surviving victims, let's put it that way, because their loved ones have been brutally murdered in some horrible fashion or another, they have rights. This is about able to feel like their government, that the institutions that are should protect them are actually doing their job. Sometimes you have to pass certain laws to do that. So yet again, this session, we're making another attempt to get that done. I'm absolutely thrilled to hear Lieutenant Governor say that he's spoken to Speaker Burrows and that we will have House support on this, because as I've said before, this has come out of the Senate in a bipartisan fashion. I have support letters on this package from Mayor Whitmire back in Houston, from Sean Terry, the new Democrat elected DA in Harris County, who support this. And now we know that perhaps the will to do the right thing. These are a series of very common sense. Some are some improvements on the SB 6, which passed in 2019, which controlled who could get a personal bond. It expands that. It brings it right for the district attorney to appeal a ruling about a bond that they feel is inappropriate and too low under the circumstances. It provides that the presiding elected judges have to make some of these decisions on the most serious offenses rather than let an appointed magistrate do that, to bring accountability to the judicial system. Most importantly, we are going to have two major constitutional amendments. One will provide, if an illegal, undocumented alien, as defined under federal law, is found to have probable cause to have committed a felony in Texas, that they can be held without bond, period. From there, the process can go forward and the trial can be had, but in the meantime, that person is held with no opportunity for bond. That SJR, that bill, is dedicated in the memory of Jocelyn. It's called Jocelyn's Law, and Jocelyn's mom is here. She very bravely testified. I told her today that no mother could have done better for her daughter as she did today for her. These are real people, folks, who have suffered great tragedy because, as I said in committee, we failed them. We failed them. And we have to make this right. We also want the constitutional amendment to pass that would allow judges, after a hearing, to deny bail, again, to the most violent offenders. We're not talking about misdemeanors offenders. All the bail reform, everything we've done for misdemeanor, low risk, nonviolent offenders, all that stays in place. So don't listen to those opposing this bill who say we're trying to put everyone in jail or we're undoing, treatment. None of that is true. This is about targeted violent offenders who have been released multiple times to commit horrible crimes upon the citizens of this state. And I'll say that Andy Kahn, who's here, I see he's joined us from Crime Stoppers in Houston, has kept really good records of what has gone on. Since January of 21, when we passed this out of the Senate, prior to that, and we tried to get this done, 162 people have been murdered in Harris County by individuals who were out on one or more bonds. Now, just chew on that fact for a while, folks, and imagine it was your family member, your relative, someone you knew or loved, your neighbor, who had been needlessly killed because of a lack of the government, of us, of the legislature, taking care of you and that Harris County, Texas is using taxpayer money to donate to the bail project and setting bail or providing bail for gotta be felons, because some of the bail project money was $10,000 at one time, another time it was $6,500. So those are bail amounts for felony offenses. So we're going to put an end to taxpayer funded bailing out criminals using the same money that's supposed to be used for prosecutors and police, law enforcement, and for protecting our victims. So we're taking a big bite out of this. We're going to, I said, and I think I have Lieutenant Governor's backup. We're playing hardball this time, right? Hardball. We have got to get this done for the people of Texas, and we're going to work darn hard to get it done. Thank you.
My name is April Aguirre. I am the aunt of 9-year-old Arlene Alvarez. Arlene Alvarez was killed on her way to dinner on Valentine's Day 3 years ago this Friday. She was within arm's reach of her parents, and they still couldn't keep her safe. The individual that shot her was out on bond before Arlene's body left the hospital to a morgue. And this is where our fight began. We are common people that had to take a crash course in this criminal justice system, and since then have vowed to help other crime victims. Today, under the leadership of Dan Patrick, Lieutenant Dan Patrick, Senator Huffman, and with the help of Andy Kahn from Crime Stoppers, and of course with the support of crime victims, today we say our laws change and are going to be changed to benefit crime victims. We need to stop with the misaligned sympathies of criminals only because they're minorities or low income. We got to switch that around. The majority of crime victims are also minorities and are also low income. We did not have the money that day to bury Arlene. We didn't have the money, not even for a cremation, but there's no payment plans for funerals. And because we didn't want to put her in a whatever box, in a whatever plot, we had to take a loan. So why shouldn't criminals be financially burdened by their crimes when they commit them, but victims are immediately given a life sentence of pain and suffering? Today we say no more. Today we say our criminal justice system is going to work for crime victims. And we vowed to help everybody that we could, specifically parents of murdered children, in Arlene's honor and in all crime victims' honor. I want to say that right now we have over 1,200 inmates waiting for trial in Harris County, have the ability to speak up, but today we speak for them. And I want to thank Governor Abbott for thinking about crime victims, because if we don't have a criminal justice system, we have anarchy, and you're going to force Texans to take matters into their own hands. We need a criminal justice system that works and that is centered around crime victims. Thank you so much. I'm going to present to you now some paperwork. And this is 16 pages of money sent over to the Bail Project, totaling $900 for law enforcement is being used to bail out violent individuals, because guess what? Misdemeanors now get available on the auditor's website in Harris County. Unbelievable. I'm going to yield now to Jocelyn Nungare. Alexis Nungare, Jocelyn's mom.
Good morning, everybody. My name is Alexis Nungare, the mother of Jocelyn Nungare. She was a 12-year-old girl who snuck out of our apartment one evening to go to the gas station to get a soda, and she ran into two individuals that she had no business running into. They were leaving a sports bar very late, drunk, under the influence of drugs. They lured her by asking for directions, and she was strangled to death. She was assaulted, and she was tied up, hands and feet, thrown at the bottom of a bayou under a bridge in a bed of water, found the next morning with no pants on. In the process of trying to process my daughter's loss and trying to process with my family, trying to process and plan a funeral for a 12-year-old child, I was forced to go to the court system and be in court for both of these individuals who were two illegal immigrants who were apprehended individually at their own times, one in March, one in May of 2024. 3 weeks later, after the last one was released, they took Jocelyn's life. I had to go to court with my family to ensure that they were going to get an adequate bond, because in the state of Texas, they are required to sit in a courtroom with the faces of the people who's my daughter's last people she saw before her last breath, to make sure that these individuals did not get released. These individuals had no business being here in the first place, and the fact that me and my family had to be there to make sure they had a high enough bond is something we shouldn't have had to sit through. No victim should have to be subject to that. No victim's family should have to be subject to that. And I stand here with trying to bring my testimony and testify and say that anyone who comes here illegally and creates and does crime should not be allowed a bond. It's not right. It's very inhumane. The people who come here and do the things that they do just don't deserve the bond. Thank you so much.
Hello, everybody. My name is Paul Castro. In July of 2021, my 17-year-old son, my 13-year-old son, and I were driving home from an Astros game when we incurred the wrath of a person who was a two-time felon who had been out on parole at the time that this all happened. He chased us. He got mad at us on the road, tried to get away. He chased us for 3 miles down I-10. In an effort to get away, he took 2 shots at us from behind. One of those 2 shots hit my 17-year-old son in the head and killed him. I cannot explain to you what it's like to be in a vehicle with your most, beloved person in the whole world dying next to you. He died that night officially, but that was just the beginning of the horrors. His killer was arrested thanks to the hard work of Houston Police Department and Crime Stoppers in gathering over 100 tips. The judge knew that he was a two-time felon. The judge knew that he was a violent offender and tried to set a bail bond high enough that it would not be met, $350,000. Unfortunately, because of a loophole in the system, he was able to get out barely a month after he was arrested. The time he was let out, because of a glitch in the system, he didn't even have an ankle monitor attached to him that first weekend. He was able to roam free. I cannot express to you the amount of fear and terror I had also, this deep, deep desire to see something changed. Mr. Williams was out for a year and a half awaiting trial. And in that time, he actually broke his bail bond violation a couple times. And because of the lax system in Harris County, we weren't even notified till 3 weeks after the event. The system's broken. The fact that this person who was a known violent offender was able to achieve the fact that in order to have stopped it, we would have had to have had my 13-year-old son testify as to what happened that night in 60-day intervals for, perhaps as long as 4 years. It would have been a year and a half. Simply unacceptable. The bills that are being placed forward by Senator Huffman, being supported by our Lieutenant Governor and Governor, should be nonpartisan. There's nothing partisan about asking our judges to hold people accountable when they do horrible things. There's nothing, especially the Texas representatives in the House who are from Harris County, to stand with us. There's, again, no reason for this to be anything other than that. Stand with us and support these bills in the House versions to become law so that we can make our community safe again. Thank you.
I'm Nancy Bulla. My daughter was murdered 3 years ago, Indigo Garza. She was 20 years old. A year prior, she was sent to jail for 29 days and only served 9 days. Not only did they enable her, but they let her out to exactly what was destroying her in the first place. She didn't get a chance to sober up or make changes. And so now, a year later, she was murdered. And she didn't get that chance to make changes. Thank you.
Before I introduce Andy, I want to be sure that all of you know the emphasis is on Harris County because they are the worst offenders. The judges on those benches are the worst offenders. And the magistrates who are not elected but make no mistake, this is a statewide problem because as the Comal County DA testified, as Brett Ligon in Montgomery County and sheriffs all across the state, these killers don't just stay in Harris County or Dallas County or Travis County or Bexar County. They travel the state. And so no one is safe in Texas. If we have people arrested and put in jail for the murder of someone or the rape of someone or a child sex, if a judge in a big county lets them out, they can go to a small county and your family and your children and your loved ones are in danger. Andy Kahn?
Thank you, Lieutenant Governor Patrick, Senator Huffman. My name is Andy Kahn. I'm Director of Victim Services for Crime Stoppers of Houston, and I have the dubious honor of knowing everybody here under the worst possible scenario you can well imagine. I've been a victim advocate for over 30 years. I was out of the mayor's office for 18 years, Houston Police Department, and am now running Crime Stoppers Victim Services as well. In 2020, Crime Stoppers started noticing a trend of defendants charged with murder in Harris County that were out on multiple felony bonds or a PR bond, and as an organization, we decided we were going to take a deep dive into this issue, and going on 5 years, we're still taking a deep dive into this issue. Crime Stoppers in Houston is the only entity in this state that is actually keeping track of defendants who've been released on bond who are then charged with murder. I documented over 200 cases from 2019 through 2023 of defendants who were on multiple felony bonds. It's more than one felony bond that were actually charged with murder. This week, we documented 162 cases of defendants who are on bond that are now charged with murder since 2021 of Harris County. We're going to take it a step further and look at defendants who are currently out on bond and see what their status is for murder and see if they've been charged with any additional crimes that I know we've been doing. One of the things that we noticed in this long journey that we've come here is on the constitutional amendment to give judges discretion. From a personal perspective and an organization perspective, there is absolutely no downside in allowing judges discretion. It's not a mandate. And I'm sure most of the judges in Jocelyn's case, everybody was outraged when a cash bond was given. How could that happen? It's capital murder. Well, guess what? The judge had no choice. He had to grant a cash. Perhaps if the judge had a choice, which is what the constitutional amendment would be, there would be no bond. This is at least our third, perhaps even fourth attempt at this. I'm hoping the third time's the charm. It's time to allow Texas voters to decide. That's all we're asking. The Senate, thankfully and gratefully, has passed this out repeatedly. For whatever reasons are beyond my comprehension, I have no idea why. It simply defies logic. It has not come out of the House. This should be about as nonpartisan bill as you can. Crime victims don't decide, hey, I'm a Democrat. They are all of us at all times. We are asking the House to allow this to come out and let the voters decide. Let the voters decide, is this a good bill or a bad bill? Don't be the ones deciding for the voters. Texas voters deserve to have the opportunity. We have seen multiple defendants get out on capital murder bond. We had a defendant who was on a $150,000 bond for capital murder that was now charged with another capital murder, and that was 71-year-old grandmother Martha Medina, who was simply getting breakfast out of McDonald's when she was killed by a defendant out on capital murder. We had the first that I've never seen in my career. We had one defendant who was on 2 capital murder bonds in 2 different counties. That's absolutely absurd. He was on bond for capital murder in Harris County, then he was charged with another capital murder in Galveston County and posted bond. He was out on bonds posting $1,650,000 because he also was on bond for aggravated robbery in Fort Bend County. 3 counties, 3 different bonds, 2 of them for capital murder. It's never happened before in this state's history. So I am urging everybody here to take a good look at these provisions that are being taken up by the Senate. And I'm asking everybody for the, as a victim advocate and Crime Stoppers, I have the hard talking to families who lost loved ones. And then it's more difficult when I tell them, your loved one was murdered and the defendant was out on multiple felony bonds. He was out on PR bonds. What happened to your loved one was a tragedy, but it was so utterly preventable because the system failed you. It's time to end the failures. It's time for us to stop documenting cases like this. I urge everyone in the state to start doing what we're doing in Harris County, which is the focus right here, because we're the only entity doing that. I get asked, well, what's happening in Dallas, San Antonio, Fort Worth? I don't know, because nobody knows, because nobody's documenting this. So, again, thank you, and let's get this done.
We'll take a few questions for anyone.
Governor, I wanted to ask about, so if all 88 House Republicans are on board, that means we need a dozen or so Democrats. You were talking to Speaker Burrows this morning. I mean, did you get any indication from him about just the chances of that happening, or how the strategy might work to get bipartisan support?
So first of all, Andy, thank you. We've been working for 30 years. We started the Houston Crime Commission a long time ago. It's been a long time, long before I was in office. The first meeting I had with Dustin Burrows, which was, I guess, a couple of weeks ago when we started, I made this a priority with him. I said we need to pass school choice, which is a priority, and we need to pass bail reform. He said, I'm supportive. I need to look at why it hasn't passed, but I'm supportive of it. Governor Abbott is in Washington today. Otherwise, Governor Abbott would have been in the hearing as well and would be here today. Dustin Burrows couldn't be in the hearing, but I texted him and I said, can I bring over these families to you? And he said, absolutely. So we left the hearing and went over there at 9:30. I am putting my faith in him that he will find 12 Democrats. I would think it should pass, but I'm counting on him to get this done. In the past, Democrats appointed by speakers in key positions have bottled these bills up. There are lots of ways to kill a bill. Points of order, slowing it down, whatever the answer is. There is no excuse. This is an emergency item. We will pass next week all of these bills off the Senate floor. Most of them will be unanimous or near unanimous. I'm putting my faith in the Speaker to get it done. I believe he's sincere about it, and he has the power to do it because he appointed 30 chairs. At least 12 of them should come on board in return for their appointment. I would like to think they all would. Next question.
Senator Huffman, there have been multiple references to Harris County Democrats in the House. Who are you talking about?
Well, if you ask, I'm not going to start naming names because I probably wouldn't name all of them, but they are all Democrats from the Harris County region, so you can do your research or pull the voting history. Yeah.
What would the strategy be?
I'm going to let Lieutenant Governor describe hardball because he's probably would be the pitcher, right?
Yeah. You know, in my 10 years, we played hardball. We played hardball in 2017 and forced a special session and passed a lot of bills that should have passed the House. We played hardball last year and said we're not giving up on our $100,000 homestead exemption. And this time, we will play hardball on this issue. As far as I'm concerned, if these bills do not pass the House, I see no reason for us not to go to a special session and another special session and another special session. Because as you heard from Andy, in the last several years since Chairman Huffman has passed this bill, over 100 people have been killed in Harris County that might be alive today if the House had passed the bill. This is serious stuff. This is life and death. These are people who will never forget their sons and daughters. So whatever it takes, we will not leave here until these bills pass the House, period. If it takes 2 years, we'll keep coming back.
That's hardball. In case you're wondering.
Tell us more about your conversation with the county leaders, so anyone else?
I have not talked to county leaders.
Governor, can we go back to the conversation with Speaker Burrows?
Yes.
I think there was a little bit of a sliver of a feeling that we may have even come in this morning thinking you were going to be critical Speaker of the House pretty much the entire session until it was April or May. And now it sounds like you kind of just walked into Speaker Burrows' office and had this discussion with him. Can you talk a little bit more about the relationship as you see moving forward?
Sure. Look, I may have disagreed and did disagree about the process, but he's the Speaker. And my job is to get things done. So my job is to work with the Speaker. And that's what we're doing. Dustin is the smartest guy over there. He is. Very accomplished. And I've worked with him on a number of bills since he came in. He came in at 15 when I became Lieutenant Governor. So he was kind of the right-hand man for both Dennis Bonnen and Dade Phelan. So we've had a working relationship, a respectful relationship. And we've met on the first day of session. I believe it was the first day or second day. And then we had breakfast. You know, the previous speaker, I'm not going to, that's yesterday, but we didn't have a conversation for 2 years. For 2 years. I've already had a meeting with him. We've already had breakfast, which the governor characterizes the best substantial breakfast we've ever had to talk about issues. It wasn't just happy talk over, ham and eggs. And we've talked since then, I think twice. And then I communicated with him and said, I know you're busy, but can I bring these witnesses over? I asked him that last week. He said, absolutely. And so this morning, once we knew the time set and everything was set, I texted him this morning while I was in the hearing and said, I can bring them over at 9:30. Are you free? And he said, absolutely. So we have started out on a good path. But at the end of the day, the only thing that counts is when session is over, which bills pass and which bills don't. I'll do everything I can to help the speaker have success. Any other questions? Well, thank you all for being here. Thank the families again. Their stories are just a small piece of the suffering of many people in this state. And we're going to get this done. Thank you all very much.
Thank you.